Welcome. My name is Barbara Nemko, and it's been my honor to be the County Superintendent of Schools in Napa for the last 20 years. Many of you have been to workshops here before, I believe, because you look familiar. Is there anybody who has never been to a workshop here before? Ah, okay, so it's a new group. Well, welcome. I think one of the questions that every student in school has always asked is, why do I need to learn this? What am I ever going to do with it? And now then followed by, what am I going to do when I grow up? What kind of jobs are there? I have no idea. How do I decide? And especially today, where we've heard so much about how it's hard for people to get jobs, it's a really pressing question. So we thought we would bring in one of the Bay Area's most well-known career coaches. The fact that I happen to have been married to him for 40 years, and he would absolutely do it for nothing, because, you know, that he owes me, made it even nicer. The downside of that is he is the first guest we've ever had speak who walked in jeans, sneakers, and a dirty shirt.
Hey, I was being a good husband. You know, I was here early because I had to come from Oakland, and I did some gardening for her, and so of course I got some soil.
And within the first 2 minutes, managed to use bad language.
What did I say?
But on the good side, you get 3 for the price of 1. 1, 2, and 3. 3 being the cutest and the one you may enjoy the most. So you put that in your evaluations too.
First of all, does anybody not want the dog? Is anybody he's hypo-energetic and hyper-loving. Anybody don't want the dog here? How many want the dog here? Raise your hand. There we go.
Okay, so tonight Marty is going to talk about careers and all the things you probably don't know about career options. He's been a career counselor for the last 30 years?
29 years.
29, close enough for government work. For the last 29 years. And so he's seen thousands of clients and helped lots of people figure out what it is that they want to be. And for those of you who already are, whatever you decided you wanted to be, he does what he calls 3-minute career makeovers, where you can tell him something about the job and what you're not liking about it, and he can help you figure out a way to, he calls it accessorize, like when you buy a suit off the hanger. Well, men probably don't accessorize so much, but women do. And then you add a scarf, and you add a belt, and you add a pin, and it looks different. And that's something that you can do to your job. So I give you Marty Nemko.
What about the radio show we do together?
Oh, what about that?
Okay. All right, yes, I'm Marty Nemko, and I love doing these things. I'm actually a mildly sad person by nature, and I come to life when I do this. I will get back in my car and go home, and I'll be my usual semi-sad person. But really, that's the truth. The one thing you're going to get from me, much more authenticity than you normally get in these things. You're going to hear my absolute truth.
Keep it clean.
And if I don't, you just push the buzzer or something. Right. Anyway, okay, I'm supposed to do it like this, right? Oh, yes, right, okay.
Hay difusión, traducción al español, si alguien está interesado que necesite, están atrás los aparatos, ¿verdad? Sí, tampoco se pasa.
Okay, terrific. Okay. One of the, I'll just not tell with the agenda. One of the things that most people really appreciate is they only know about a small number of careers. And because you only know a small number, doctor and lawyer and teacher and social worker and entrepreneur and maybe venture capitalist or whatever, a broadcaster, fashion model, all the rest of it, because you only know of a few careers, the competition is environmentalist. Everybody wants to be environmentalist. Now, you know what? First truth. Because it is so pushed in the high schools and colleges, there are hundreds of applicants for every environmental job. There are dozens even for no-pay internships. So my job is to expand your horizons, to go beyond the obvious careers and get you under the radar. But also, I don't believe in happy, silly talk. I'll make jokes, but you never hear this career sucks. That's an acceptable word. So we're gonna be doing a little exercise here. I created a list of both underrated and overrated careers. And the underrated ones are very under the radar. Most people don't go after them. So you got a better shot at getting the job and being paid well. Because if I am Mr. Environment and I place an ad, I'm an environmental nonprofit to save the whales, and I get hundreds of applicants, I say, hey man, I can make this a volunteer gig or an internship or minimum wage. But if it's one of these under the radar careers, there are not going to be hundreds of applicants, so you might actually make a living. That's my job. My job is to help you make a living and enjoy it. Because one of the things people don't realize, career contentment, this is really important. Career contentment comes much more from being an expert at something that is ethical than what it is. One of the happiest people I know works for, I should be doing this, right? How many, do you need me to use the microphone? You like it?
I'm in the front row.
Raise your hand. How many want me to use the mic? How many don't? Okay, I'm using it. Okay. All right. So, one of the happiest people I know, she is simply a customer service rep for East Bay Mud. That's the water utility in the Bay Area. Because she knows it cold. She knows how to take angry people, calm them down, and help them. Not just calm them down. Oh, I can feel your pain. I hear. No. She knows how to solve every damn problem that exists. And so she goes home every night and she feels great about herself. And yet no one would say she's got a cool career. So, important. Even when you're young and you're a kid, you're a teenager, it's not wrong to pick something and decide, you know what? I'm going to be a rock star at it. Maybe you've got a family connection. Maybe something that has nothing to do with the careers on here. But your family is, you know somebody who can get you a better job or train you and give you an apprenticeship in something. I know somebody who did that in the scrap metal business. Nobody gives a crap about scrap metal business. Crap is in the dictionary. Nobody gives a crap about scrap metal. But when he learned everything there was to know about that from his father, who was in the business, you import some from Russia and you arbitrage. You can buy some from China and then sell to Russia. He became the expert at scrap metal, and that made him feel like not an imposter, like somebody who knows something. And that made him feel, because he would always treat his customers fairly, and he was an expert. He wasn't fooling. He wasn't that. So many people, even with PhDs, have something called the imposter syndrome. They have all these, the learning they learned in school, book learning, but in the real world, they can't do it. So don't be afraid of choosing a career early. Something under the radar that maybe your family or friends touts you to or touts you for. You can always change. But the earlier you start, half the people who choose a career when they're young don't change. And then you get a huge head start compared to everybody else. And if after 2 years you say, I'm sick of scrap metal or industrial acids or anything else, you've got plenty of time to change. But if you do like so many people, well, I'm undecided, I think I'll figure it out when I get to college. Most times you don't. Because you're learning stuff, you're being taught by people who are academics. And the academic courses don't necessarily translate to a real career. So it's often smarter, as I'm going to teach you later, to investigate some career. You can eat, no problem. Enjoy. The dog can eat too, right? Right. So, make your tentative choice early, while you're still in high school. That way you can do a summer apprenticeship, a summer internship. Try stuff out. And then you can reject it. Okay? All right, now we can get to this little game, which is hopefully you'll find it fun. I've never done it before. By the way, I've given hundreds of talks. I never give the same talk twice. Ever, 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 ever. That's a lesson for you as well. Because not only does it keep me fresh, but it makes sure that what you're getting is really current. So what I started to do in preparation for tonight I made a list of what I thought were the most overrated careers and underrated careers, and I mushed them up. I put them on that sheet of yours. So now, I'd like you to you don't have to torture yourselves. Either by yourself or with whoever you're with. You can do it collaboratively or by yourself, whatever you like. Mark a pretty U next to each one you think I'm going to think is underrated, and then O next to the one I'm going to think is overrated, and then we'll talk. Okay, somebody asked a question. This is probably a good question. They want a definition of overrated and underrated. Overrated means that most people think that it's worse than most people think it is. Right? Like I'll give one example already. I'm going to be generous. I'll give you an answer. Most people think acting is a cool career. It's way overrated because in the real world it has many, 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 many disadvantages. So that would be overrated. Underrated might be a career that most people think is, I don't want to do that, but it turns out to be better for many people than we might think. Of course, the worst career for one person could be the best for another. I'm well aware. But we're talking about on averages. Do most people think too little of it, or do most people think too much of it? Yeah.
Are you thinking in purely financial terms?
No, absolutely not. Everything, all things considered. Quality of work, quality of life, ethics, money, regular hours, everything, all things considered. There's all kinds of other positives and negatives. All things considered. Good question. How many people need more time? Raise your hand. Okay, we're going to go. So, okay. I'm not going to do this for all of them, but how many of you think that being a physician is overrated? Who could tell me why? You're absolutely right. It is very overrated. And part of why I know, I teach in the medical school at UCSF. Why do I think that being a doctor is overrated? It's less good than most people think.
It's really stressful.
It is really stressful for many reasons. We have a large number of non-compliant patients who you say you've got to lose weight or else, and they don't, and it gets very frustrating. It's stressful because every patient, you've got to get it right. You could be missing an important diagnosis. You've got paperwork that's unbelievable. The government requires and the insurance company requires, unbelievable. There's a lot. Half your people are non-compliant. Half your patients are non-compliant. The other half walk in with an internet printout and they know more about their condition than you do. So you feel insecure. It is absolutely, and even I was teaching medical school at UCSF. It costs $300,000 to get a medical degree from UCSF, which is a public institution. That is unbelievable. And we are, even despite the Trump plans now, over the arc of your lifetime, we are going to have single payer. And under single payer health care, doctors will be paid far, far less. And most of the work that isn't really stressful and really hard is going to be done by nurse practitioners and physician assistants. So it is one of the most overrated careers of all. I listed it first for that reason. I know, and this is one of my favorite statements that I've ever made, status is the enemy of contentment. I understand that it is prestigious, it is statusy to be a doctor. Oh yes, I'm a doctor. Oh yes, my daughter's going to medical school. I got it. But that is outweighed by the fact of not only how difficult and long it is, but the stress, as was said. Let's go to the next one. Physician assistant. How many think it's overrated? Raise your hand. How many think it's underrated? You're absolutely, boy, this is a smart group. Absolutely. You get to do 80% of what doctors do, and you still make a six-figure salary, and the training is only a few years. Medical school training is, first of all, you need a bachelor's degree with a lot of hard science, math, and calculus, and then 4 years of medical school, and then a residency that is between 2 and 4 years long. That is a very long way, whereas a physician assistant can do, it's like 3 years. It's like a year you could do it at a community college, like the Foothill College is the best one in the Bay Area, and then a couple more years in a joint program with Stanford, and you're done. And when we're trying to cover everybody, and many of the people we're trying to cover are low-income people. They can't afford to pay much. They're not going to pay into the system. So what's going to happen? the work formerly done by doctors are going to be done by physician assistants and nurse practitioners. So the job market is going to be awesome for physician assistants. And the kicker is, because you're doing the routine things, you get more happy results. Because the person with stage 4 cancer is not going to see a physician assistant. That's going to see the doctor, and that's going to be hard. Or the really hard to diagnose or hard to treat patients, the doctor. So there's much more frustration. You're going to be seeing sore throats and infections and flus and things that are more likely to be cured. Physician assistant, one of the great, great careers. And completely ethical. And it's one-on-one. Most people find happiness in their careers working one-on-one. It's human. You come to me and you've got a problem. And if I can listen my butt off to you and can help you solve your problem, I feel great, you feel great. We develop a relationship. If I'm your physician assistant and I let you know I really care about you, come back and I need you to come back and try, let me know how this drug works. Email me, let me know. And then we have a relationship for years. That's what life is about. It's about these good, productive relationships. That's why I'm going to skip ahead to one of the careers, haircutter. How many think haircutter is overrated? Raise your hand. How many think haircutter is underrated? This is the smart, you can go home. You don't need this workshop. It is for the same reason as he were my patient. If I were in charge of cutting his hair, it would be quick. But anyway, it's a relationship. We see each other every 6 weeks or two months. We get to know each other, like each other, and I succeed with every customer. As long as I listen to you, what do you really want with your haircut? How do you want this done? So that I'm really there to serve. And we're chatting, we're talking about your family, about your work, about the Golden State Warriors, about whatever, Worlds of Warcraft. We become friends, right? Underrated, great career, but it's not statusy. I'm not saying, by the way, you shouldn't go to college. Most, not all of you, many of you should, and many of you shouldn't. Maybe even fewer do than, right now, college is the holy grail, it's perfect, it's the place you go. For some of you it is, but not for everybody. College is not necessarily for career. I want you to be able to be articulate, to be able to speak well, to argue well, to reason well, to appreciate art, to appreciate music, to appreciate, and I'm not just talking about hip hop. And college exposes you to all that, and I do. And I swear, may I have a heart attack if this is not true. I'm not saying this because we're in Napa. A place like Napa Valley College is so underrated. You don't realize that I'm going to lose all my credibility here. But the teaching quality in general at the community colleges, especially like Napa Valley College or Santa Rosa JC or Diablo Valley College, 3 of the best, is better than at Berkeley or Stanford or any UC. Who can tell me why? Yeah.
Closer contact with the faculty. The student gets one-on-one time with the primary instructor.
More.
Whereas in UC Berkeley, you're dealing with a grad student and you see the primary professor during lectures.
That's one reason. What's another one?
The teachers who are there are committed to the students. Many times, sometimes they could be elsewhere, but they've chosen to be at a community.
Why would they be more committed to students at a community college than at Berkeley, Harvard, Stanford, UC Davis, or anywhere else? Yes?
Because the professors are there to teach and not focus so much on research.
Thank you. Look, I have been a professor at a number of universities, and I know for sure, and I've also, really, I'll stop there. I know a lot about higher ed. The more prestigious the university, the more the teaching actually hurts you in getting hired and promoted. Because it's all about how much research you do, how much money you bring in research dollars. And if you're spending your time preparing amazing classes, you're not bringing in the money. You're not doing the research. At Napa Valley College, at all community colleges, there is no expectation of the faculty doing research. There's expectation that they do a good job teaching. Of course, you can get a crappy teacher anywhere. But net, on average, you're going to get better teaching at Napa Valley College, and Santa Rosa JC, and Diablo Valley College than you will at UC Davis or UC Berkeley, let alone Stanford or Harvard. Now, yes, we live in a designer label society, and so I can't lie to you and tell you, of course, oh yes, my degree's from Stanford. Of course, that's going to help you get some jobs. But the reality is most people don't get into Stanford, first of all. I'm not saying if you get into Stanford, you probably should go. Because we have, first of all, the advantage of being with kids like that is it helps you grow a lot. I'm not saying that. But if you're deciding, the most typical decision is UC Davis or UC Santa Barbara or UC Santa Cruz or Sonoma State or whatever versus Napa Valley College, a smart choice is Napa Valley College. And if you want to transfer, fine, great. They all have transfer programs. It's free, essentially free, and the teaching is better. And you know what? I know kids don't want to hear this. There is so much real bad behavior that happens when kids are away in a dorm for the first time, away from parents' watchful eye. Sex, drugs, rock and roll, with an emphasis on the drugs, that it is not a bad idea to live with mom, dad, or whoever you live with for those first 2 years so you can have a little more maturation. So you save money, you get better teaching.
And you get your laundry done.
Can you see why I'm married to her for 40 years? She's great. Right. I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And I need to do this not to brag, but to have some credibility. My PhD is from Berkeley, and it is in the evaluation of education. And I've been a consultant to 15 college presidents. And I've taught at Cal State East Bay, and at Davis, and at Berkeley. And so with all that now, then I've written a number of books other than career books on higher ed. And I can look you in the eye and I can tell you, if you're my son, you're my daughter, I would urge you to start, in most cases, I mean, if you get to Stanford or Harvard, that's just too, I would pay for it. I'd find a way. But except for that, and probably not Berkeley, though. I probably wouldn't pay for Berkeley. Because Berkeley also has got a big disadvantage in terms of how biased the education you get. You don't get a broad education there. But except for like a Stanford or a Harvard, I would, no matter, the more I loved my child, the more I would say, please, trust me on this. Start at a community college. I'm not going to micromanage your life. I'm not going to be looking over your shoulder. You want to date? You want to stay out late? I'm not going to give you a curfew. You're grown up. We can save a lot of money. I'll buy you a car. But trust me on this. Start at the community college. And if you want to transfer, the first day you show up at Napa Valley College, there's somebody called a transfer coordinator. You make an appointment on day one so that you're taking the right courses so that you can then transfer later to whatever, Cal State East Bay, San Francisco State, Sonoma State, Berkeley, whatever. Sound good? Make sense? The transfer coordinator. That may not be their title, but there's somebody like that for sure. Okay, next. Anesthesiology assistant. How many think I think it's overrated? How many think I think it's underrated? Oh, you guys are too good, Jesus. Anesthesiology assistant is a really cool career. Anesthesiologist, by the way, is one of the longest, anesthesiologist is one of the longest of the, I'm not holding the microphone because I've got this here and so I'm, right. So, anesthesiology assistant works either alongside the anesthesiologist who spent a zillion years in school and has all this debt, working in the operating room, also before the operation, preparing the patient for surgery, including drugs, and afterwards monitoring to make sure that there wasn't an ill effect of the anesthetic. And it's just a bachelor's degree and a 2-year master's. And it's 6-figure income and huge demand. Because again, it's so much cheap. The average anesthesiologist makes $350,000 a year. The average anesthesia assistant makes $125,000 a year. So with this tremendous need to control costs, because so many low-paid people are going to be covered, they're using many more anesthesiology assistants. Really cool career that nobody ever thinks about going in. So if that appeals to you, even when you're still in high school, go at, Kaiser, by the way, I do think the future is Kaiser Permanente. I really do think that that's where health is moving toward. They have the best electronic medical record system. They're really hooked into what likely will be the future. Find an anesthesiology assistant at Kaiser. Call their human resource department. Tell them the truth that you're, or just Google anesthesiology assistant Kaiser Vallejo, or Kaiser, they may not have one in the little Napa clinic here. And say, I'm in high school, I attended this career workshop with this weird guy, and he told me about this thing called anesthesiology assistant, and I Googled it, I read about it, and I watched a couple of YouTube videos, and it seemed really cool. And then I went to Amazon, and I bought a book. That was 30 people tell what it's really like to be an anesthesiology assistant, and I'm really excited. By any chance, would you let me watch you? Would you let me shadow you? If you're persistent, the first person may say, oh no. But if you're persistent, somebody's going to say yes. And then you have the best college essay, application essay you could imagine. You're going to be the one who gets hired because you will have committed early. You will have started early. All those people who say, I'm going to decide in college, and they dabble around in all this stuff, dabbling is death. It's another of my favorite quotes. Dabbling is death. I am well aware it is very fun, and I love fun, but it is very fun. Oh, I like to learn a little bit about this, and a little bit about that, and a little bit about this, and a little bit about that. That's fine, but there should be one thing you say, I'm going to be a rock star. I don't care whether it is. I don't care if it's ditch digging, or it's going to be the President of the United States. But say it, damn it, I am going to focus. Focus is another of my favorite words. I am going to focus, and I'm going to be awesome so that you don't feel like an imposter. Okay? Next. Okay. Scientist. How many think scientist is overrated? How many think it's underrated? You're absolutely right. Why is scientist overrated? You're absolutely right. I want to call on a kid now. Yeah? Say it again?
Maybe because you have to get a diploma.
He said maybe because you need an advanced degree. And it's true, but it's worse than that. There was an association, it's the leading association for brain science. It's called the Society for Neuroscience. And I was honored that they had me be their official career counselor at their last convention. They had like 10,000 people there. And I did all these one-on-one career counselings. And I did a session. There were 500 people at the session looking for help with their careers. These are all people with PhDs and postdocs. Postdoc is after the PhD, additional training. There's a huge oversupply of them. So you put all these years, and it's really hard to get a job. It really, really is. And progress is often slow. Many people who are scientists go through their whole life, and all they can say is, well, I solved those blind alleys. But big breakthroughs, curing polio, think of how many scientists have been working to cure cancer for 100 years. And unfortunately, we all know people who weren't necessarily cured. Fortunately, we know people who were. Okay, so that's overrated, for sure. Optometrist. How many think optometrist is overrated? Raise your hand. Underrated, raise your hand. Wow, you're right, but why? Okay, who wants to tell me? Another kid, I want to call a kid. Just I'm a girl. I haven't called, I'm trying to be fair. Over here, great. A lot of supply, not particularly. Supply would, if there was a lot of supply of optometrists, that would make it worse because it would mean it would be harder to get a job. It is underrated because, you want to take a shot at it? Go ahead.
Because they'll always have work and there will never be like a dip in customers.
That's very good. People always will need optometrists, and it's not offshoreable. It can't be sent to, job can't be sent to India. And as we boomers are aging, our vision gets worse. And so we need optometrists. And there is a difference between an optometrist and an ophthalmologist and an optician. The optician is the person who simply goes and helps you pick out frames and fits you and all that. That's a low-pay crapola job. That's an interim job, not a career. Ophthalmologist, on the other end, is an MD with all that school plus a 4-year residency. No good. right in the sweet spot is optometrist. They have actually 6 or 7 year combined bachelor's and OD. OD is a doctor of optometry degrees. In 7 years from after high school, you get to be a doctor of optometry, 6-figure income, no night and weekend calls. Nobody says, oh, why my contact lens? I need my appointment at 3 in the morning. It's clean work.
I've done that.
Okay. Anyway, most people, except for her. You succeed with almost every patient. Great, underrated career, and there aren't a lot of people going for it. So if you're planning to be, you think, well, see, I'm thinking about being a doctor. You say, no, you know what? It's smarter. It's under the radar. I'm going to be an optometrist. That's what I mean by under the radar. It's smart. Right? Okay. Looking at the clock. Yeah, all right. I think this is worth doing. These are worthwhile. I'm going to skip some, though. I'll just say court reporter is overrated. It requires incredible focus. It actually takes quite a few years to learn that stenography, and it's going to eventually be replaced by voice recognition software. So I don't recommend it. Lawyer, definitely overrated. Studies show that 75% of lawyers are unhappy. Even my daughter, who is really a rock star, my daughter was voted the #1 student at UCLA. She got into the White House as Hillary Clinton's researcher, which then got her into Yale Law School. And her dream job was to work for NARAL, the National Abortion Rights League. She didn't get the job, despite all of that. Oh yeah, and she was an editor in the Feminist Law Review at Yale. And she's very well adjusted, low maintenance, and she didn't get the job at NARAL. Now, she is the U.S. Attorney now for the Department of Justice in Washington, D.C. It's not like she's in charge.
She's not the U.S. attorney.
A U.S. Attorney. Okay, I meant there are more than one U.S. attorneys for the Department of Justice. So, I think actually her title is Assistant U.S. Attorney. Is that correct? Okay. We want to make sure we don't. But she's a big shot lawyer in Washington, right? She's been in the paper a bunch of times. Is that correct? In the Washington Post.
Sex offenders.
Right. Okay. So, but even when you do that, even if you have that level of expertise, it ain't easy to get a good job. Most lawyers are doing crap like defending insurance companies to keep little old ladies from getting money from getting run over or whatever, or business to business law where you're just fighting one representing one corporation fighting another corporation so that this corporation gets this 10,000 more and this one gets 10,000 less, and all this little shenanigans. A lot of unhappy lawyers. Overrated. Again, status is the enemy of contentment. Most people know, oh yes, I'm a lawyer, I'm an attorney. It's statusy, but you pay too big a price. Not to mention this $200,000 for the 3 years of law school. How many think being a computer engineer or a electrical engineer is overrated? Raise your hand. How many think it's underrated? Einstein down. He was going for the cookies. Okay, it is definitely overrated. Who can tell me why being an electrical engineer or a computer engineer, computer scientist is overrated? Yeah. There's so many people going for it, and it's totally offshoreable. Ever more work that can be, where the work product can be sent over the internet, can be done in a low-cost country like China or India. 2 countries with enormous populations that have a hundreds-of-year tradition of focusing on science technology. You talk to half of the Indian people I know, they're engineers. The other half are doctors. So, if you're born to do it, if you love it, if you're just a natural at it and you love it, sure, of course. I'm not saying, and that's true of every one of these careers, if you knew you were meant to be a doctor, be a doctor. But many people, there isn't this one career that stands out. And so for those of you, that's people who come here normally are not sure. How many are not sure what career you should pursue? Raise your hand. How many are sure what career? Nobody. So one. You, okay. I'm just curious, what career?
Mechanical engineer.
You're going to be a mechanical engineer. Well, that's a very good career. Now, how did you pick that?
Because I liked making things with my hands, and I really like different designs and the mechanics of different things.
I like it. It's a little more under the radar. Mechanical engineers do everything like design machines. What does a mechanical engineer do? Do you know?
I don't exactly know what they do because it's kind of broad.
Okay.
I want to design cars and make different components for automotive design.
Awesome.
So.
I'm really interested. I'm always looking for under the radar. And he said, well, again, I don't have the microphone. I'm always looking for under the radar things because then there's less competition. When he said he wanted to design cars, what went on in my head was, oh, so does a million kids. But when he said components, very few people want to design components. So if you're my son, I tell you, let's design a component together. What component you want to design?
I'm not exactly sure, so I was thinking either turbochargers, superchargers, or possibly even wheels.
Awesome. Let's start with wheels because it's simpler for starters. Let's Google wheel design because you can be sure there's all kinds of ways that it could be, there's always the balance between weight and strength. If I made it out of aluminum foil, it would be lightweight, but it wouldn't be strong. If I made it with heavy steel, it'll be too heavy and it'll weigh down a car. So we'd be learning about alloys. We'd be learning about how much space you really need. If you leave a lot of space, it's not solid, it's lighter, but how much can we do with strength? We would study the wheel. And then we would design our own wheel together. Does that sound like a good thing to do? And that would test the waters. If he doesn't like it, great, we move on. He likes it, great. Maybe he's going to then we'll move to a turbocharger. And now, at minimum, he's got a leg up career-wise, and if he does choose to try to get into a prestigious college or an internship at Toyota, he's got something to show. Can you see how that laser focus, rather than dabbling, we went deep into that. We didn't say mechanical engineering. We took something he was interested in. He said wheels, not me. I want to focus on what he's interested in. I focused on the simpler one first, but we're going to do a deep dive. So he's going to be Mr. Wheel. You're going to be the expert. And that will make you feel like you're really special.
Yeah.
That's the idea. Make sense?
Yes.
Thank you for speaking up. Great. Okay, yes, we should give him an applause. Oh, you know what I got to do? I got to give him a book. He's one of the youngest kids here, and he had great poise, and he was really smart, and he gave rise to a lot. So it is an honor to give you this book.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on. I'm having fun. How many of you are having fun? Cool. All right. Now, nuclear engineer, I'm going to just briefly tell you, it's underrated, especially here in the Bay Area. Oh, nuclear! Oh, bombs, Chernobyl! The truth is that solar and wind, I was just reading a study that says that it can only, at best, be 5 to 10% of our energy solution. It just is not shining often enough in enough places. So nuclear is 100% clean, does not harm the environment, and is much safer and is becoming much safer than ever. And so, again, going under the radar, away from the crowds. Being a nuclear engineer, if you're going to be one, is really smart money. Maybe California will be last, because California it's got its own kind of policies. But much of the country and much of the world, and including Bill Gates, who has invested billions in really compact, small, safe nuclear. Becoming a nuclear engineer is underrated because it's under the radar. Getting this point, it's really an important point. We tend to be lemmings. We tend to follow what the media tells us. Oh, I want to be an environmental engineer. I want to be a fashion designer. I want to be a doctor, a lawyer. Then you're just part of the crowd, and then, there's an enormous crowd at the front door. Okay. You want to go back door. Artistic careers. I need to start by saying I love the arts. I've been a professional pianist in New York. I played over 2,000 professional gigs as a pianist before I was 22. I love music. Every night before I go to bed for the last hour, I work till midnight almost every night, but the last half hour, I sit in my easy chair and I put on music. I love music. I love to play the piano. But it's so risky. Everybody thinks they're super talented. But really, the percentage of people who really have both the talent and the drive, incredible drive, and the connections is so small. So I call artistic careers, whether it's being a magician or an artist or an actor or a pianist or a poet or whatever, the world's greatest hobby and the world's worst career. Unless you really are winning national. If you go to the Yale School of Drama, again, fine. If you get in the UCLA screenwriting program, fine. But I promise you, if you go to UC Irvine's drama program or the graphic design program at a community college, you're taking really lottery odds against making a living at it. It kills me how many kids have mortgaged their parents' future going to the Academy of Art College, the Art Institute of San Francisco, Chicago Art Institute, Fashion Institute of Design, in New York, Parsons School of Design, and they've got $130,000 or $150,000 in debt, and they are waiting tables. I don't want you to do that, but I want you to do your art. I want you to do your music. But don't expect to make a living at it. It's too big a risk, unless you're a superstar. Even the person who in the Bay Area, in the Napa area, was, until recently, I thought was the most talented person in the entire Bay Area, was Taylor Bartolucci. How many of you know Taylor Bartolucci? Taylor is a fine actress who was trained at ACT and a fine singer. She's had the lead in every role here in the Bay Area, big musical role, Funny Girl and Kiss Me Kate and Sound of Music. She's done it all. But she tried New York and couldn't do it. And she came back here, and it's a serious, her day job, she's in marketing as her day job. But because she's made it a very serious hobby, and she actually started a theater company with her friend Barry Martin. It's the most serious hobby she could have, but she gets to play these dream roles, but not be broke. World's greatest hobby, world's worst career. I have a one-man show that I do, again, for hobby, which I did at Lucky Penny. And the woman who was my stage manager, I don't remember her name, she's got blue hair, that I remember. She's so ecstatic about being a stage manager, but it's her hobby, it's not her career. So she gets to be in the world of theater. To be a stage manager on Broadway is really hard. Almost nobody gets to do it. People are grateful for her because it's hard to get a good stage manager. So instead of going to a cattle call audition on Broadway where there's 500 people auditioning for one part, people praise her, hug her. I was so appreciative of her because she was an awesome stage manager. So the arts, we couldn't love it more, but we think it's the world's worst career and world's best hobby. What else next? I'm going to skip art director. Chef, bad career. Hours really suck. It's very much of a drug culture. People, because you're working very late. If you're a chef, you're working till midnight or 1 in the morning, and then afterwards, nobody else. There's no other social life than hanging out with your fellow waiters, etc. And you get access to free booze and free other stuff. So bad career. It's also very repetitive. There are very few super chefs, and even the super chef, it gets redundant after a while, making the stupid frou-frou sauce. So overrated career. Haircutter we talked about. Architect, I love it, but it's unfortunately there are very few people who get to design cool buildings. Mostly they're figuring out what is the code for the width of the pipe that is required to go over a door in this environment. And because it sounds so cool, it's not. Thank you. Good question. Let me think. An underrated job related to architecture. Actually, I think architectural marketing. Because there are so many architecture firms out there, there is tremendous fight to get good clients. And they hire marketers to market their business. So they're schmoozing with all these developers in the city and fat rich people, fat cat rich people and whatever. And they get to have a role in it. So I think architectural marketing, and I've given a talk, there's a whole society for architectural marketers. I gave a talk to them once. So it's not a nothing career, it's a real career. That comes off the top of my head. And of course, if money, to the extent that money matters, the way to make money is to follow the money. If you're the person who's bringing in the money to the architecture firm, you're going to get paid well. Because you're bringing in big dollars. Right? I will never tell you to cut ethical corners, and I'm never going to tell you to be a sleazy marketer or a sleazy salesperson. But if you are hardworking and ethical and a good problem solver, I need to expand on that. Many jobs require sales that pay good money. That if you're not Mr. or Ms. School and you don't want to get a graduate degree, but you want to make six figures, one of the most likely routes to six-figure income is sales. I'm not talking about working at the Target. Being what's called a manufacturer's sales rep. It's working for a company that maybe makes the tripods that he's using to video this, or chairs, or furniture, or water, or lighting systems, or these LCD projectors. Or industrial parts. The less sexy, the better, because people don't want to do it. But in the end, if you are, for example, selling industrial I-beams that are used to do construction instead of 4x4s, and you are really good at helping the customer solve their problems. Let's say they're having trouble finding good people, or they're having trouble with a certain application or whatever, and you really work to help them solve their problems, giving them free advice. Then instead of just saying, oh, this is a salesperson just trying to push their product on me, they're seen as a partner. That's a fast route to six figures, even if you're a high school dropout. If you could learn how to be a good salesperson, and there are some really good trainings. There's a book called Spin Selling, another one called Challenger Selling, another is called The Little Red Book of Selling. As long as you stay ethical, and try to become a good salesperson based on helping people solve their problems. That's a route to six figures, even if you're not a school person. You're nodding. Are you a salesperson? Okay. That's really true. There are a lot of sleazy salespeople who are all about closing the deal, over-promising, under-delivering, all that BS. No need to do that. Yes, here where you're going to get more authenticity. The sales people with the best track record, they do that. They cut all kinds of ethical corners. They overpromise, they underdeliver, they BS. So no, what I just said was not the formula to being the best salesperson. It's a formula for being the best salesperson who can sleep at night and who can tell their son or daughter, this is what I do. Make sense? Okay, what else? Surveyor, very good career doesn't require college. Using GIS, GPS to figure out the boundaries of properties. Doesn't sound sexy, but if you're a master at figuring out what really are the boundaries of that oil field or that piece of real estate or whatever, you're the go-to guy or the go-to gal. You end up becoming passionate about it because you're an expert. I want to tell you a story. A couple of Thanksgivings ago, this is a client of mine. A lot of my clients are long distance. This guy went to Michigan State, and he went to Thanksgiving dinner, family dinner, and he just graduated. And of course, the dreaded question they asked him at the table, so, Sal, what are you doing? I don't know. One of the guys at the table worked at the factory floor at International Harvester. They make tractors. He couldn't give a crap about tractors. but he wanted to move out of his parents' house. He had a girlfriend, and he didn't want to be at home. So he got a job on the factory floor of International Harvester. You know what his job was? Assembling the dashboards on tractors. He couldn't care less about that. But you know, because he was smarter than the average person on the factory floor, he learned it quickly. He saw where there were some problems about the glue not adhering well to the foam rubber, and he read up on it, and he eventually got promoted to foreman. At the next Thanksgiving, he was asked, well, what are you doing? I'm working at the International Harvester. I just got promoted to foreman, and it's kind of cool. He was a little sheepish and a little embarrassed to admit it. But the point is, being an expert at something, anything, is more likely to create career contentment than a cool career. I'm going to be a video game designer. I'm going to be a ballet dancer. Expert, focus, those words, focus, laser focus, not dabbling, status is the enemy of contentment. I know that seems weird, but it's really, having had over 5,000 career counseling clients, I know it to be true. And it's only because I have a PhD from Berkeley that I can have the guts to say it. Because if I didn't, I'd say, oh, he's got a PhD. Berkeley. Woo. It's only because I have the degree that I could see that in so many cases the emperor has no clothes. And it's not like I did badly. My dissertation was nominated for Dissertation of the Year at Berkeley. I wasn't like a bad student. But I got to see how theoretical and impractical so much of the learning is. So I'm sharing with you what I hope is the benefit of my 5,000 clients and seeing in the real world what works. Time is flying. Okay, let me see what else here. Professor. It's a lovely career, but the hypocritical universities, they talk about almost all classes, they talk about treating labor fairly, living wage, power to the people, revolution. And then when it comes time for them to pay, they hire as many professors as they can, part-time temps, so they don't have to give them benefits and pay them by the course. I will tell you a true story, but I'm not going to mention the university. I will simply say one of the most prestigious and well-funded universities in the world asked me to do something called a public lecture. They have one public lecture, maybe two a year, in which they invite everybody publicly to an auditorium to hear a speaker they think is particularly excellent, who have shown what a great citizen they are, a member of the community. Well, I was asked to do that 4 years ago at this university, and they liked it well enough that for the first time in the 160-year history of this university, they asked me back a second time. I'll be doing it this fall. Why do I tell you this? Guess what? It takes me obviously many hours to prepare. This is a very important talk. They're going to stream it live worldwide. They're going to make videos of it. They're going to video edit it down into little bits. The amount of money that they're paying me, that they offered to pay me, when I count per hour, the amount of time, believe me, I'm going to prepare a lot to do this because I want it to be awesome. I could make more money flipping burgers at In-N-Out. Really. Right? That's despite all my degrees, despite having done it before, despite it being a big deal, and they have $1 billion endowment, they're totally loaded. So, college professors, they treat you like crap. The number of administrators has grown so enormously. I picture a chart here. I can't remember the statistics. There are so many, the amount of administration has grown, partly because government regulation has gone wild, and partly because it metastasizes. But professors get treated like crap. An ever higher percentage of them are part-time, temp, essentially paid piecework. Overrated career. And you got to get a PhD, and after the PhD, there's a million, as I said, even in the sciences, there's an oversupply. Overrated. And again, I'm just one person. Don't trust me. Just take it as one data point. Check on your own. Because not everybody agrees with me about any of this stuff. Just because I'm, powerful, sounding. Doesn't mean I'm right. But I can only tell you these are my heartfelt, true beliefs. Okay. Academic advisor, very underrated. It's a great career for counseling types. And you don't need a master's degree necessarily. You're there at a college to help kids pick their major, pick courses, get services they need, disability services, language services, whatever. You're like this counselor person, and you get to work on a college campus, which is one of the most pleasant places in the world to work. It's intellectually stimulating, it's peaceful, it's great, and that they have a very short work year. Academic advisor is one of the most under the radar and underrated careers. Awesome career. Okay, student affairs. This is another underrated, great job in higher ed at colleges. Being a professor is really hard and really tough to get the job, but what fun to be in charge of orientation, to be in charge of student housing, to be in charge of clubs, fraternities. There's this whole area called student affairs, which is totally fun and is a great job. And again, you don't need a PhD. Under the radar. Nobody ever grows up thinking, I want to be a student affairs professional. But it's great. Clinical psychologist, overrated. The reality is that it is really hard to help people grow. People who have depression, bipolar, real, certain very high levels of anxiety, schizophrenia, autism. Hopefully in your lifetimes, they will come up with better cures. But we're learning that ever more of those things are caused by biological things that are going on in the brain. And clinical psychologists don't have the tools yet to do it, so they're very often hamstrung, and it's very frustrating. And it's also such an appealing thing, because every one of us, me, you, we all have issues. So there's a need for counselors and therapists. But just because there's a need doesn't mean that there is enough good solutions. And normally, because there's so many people who want to be, therapists, there's too many of them out there, and so you need a PhD to differentiate yourself. It's a lot of school, and a lot of it is BS, theoretical models that don't necessarily translate. It's really an art. If I'm a good career counselor, it's not because I have a PhD in educational psychology. It's merely because I try to listen my butt off, and because I have been laser focused. I've not dabbled. I've learned a lot over the years about how to do it, but it's a tough career, risky. Okay, genetic counselor, definitely underrated, great career. As I said, we're learning ever more that so much of who we are is genetically caused. And there are these counselors who usually are affiliated with a hospital like a UCSF. Let's say you find out that you're a carrier for breast cancer. Should you get pregnant? It's a very difficult decision. The genetic counselor translates the science into plain English and then helps the person or couple make the decision. Very interesting career. And again, it's going to grow because as we learn ever more of who we are is genetic, that's a career that's going to grow. And it only requires a master's degree, no doctorate required.
You just answered the question right there.
Okay, yep. Great career. Okay. Police officer, unfortunately, overrated. I love cops, I got to tell you. They really are not the pigs that the media paints them to be. They really, everyone I know at least, really wants to do a good job and wants to be fair to everybody of all races. And I just hate how they're being unfairly tarred. But the truth is, they are tarred, and it is a very difficult job in many areas. You're just keeping a lid on a very difficult problem. It's not the danger. Very few cops actually get killed in the line of duty. Well, you know why most of them hate it? Paperwork. Most cops are people of action. They're not people of paperwork. And there's so much documentation now required every damn traffic stop, let alone any kind of serious arrest or whatever. They're buried in paperwork. And not to mention the reputation, which is really, really undeserved. Of course, there's some bad cops, and I want them out the force just like you do. But most of them, at least in my experience, are good men and women. Next. Oh, and it pays 6 figures and absolute job security. Can't be off short. Information security, underrated. There's no question, unfortunately, as we're seeing, so many corporations, websites are being invaded and people's personal information, even the IRS was invaded. It's really hard to stay ahead of the bad guys who are trying to steal our data. So for the computer person who wants to be in computers, that's the underrated career. Yeah.
For information security specialist, do you not need to be a computer engineer?
Yes, you do. I was saying if you're going to be in computer field, that's the specialty I would suggest. Yes, data security. Data security, being really an expert. Cryptography is another example. That's encoding data so that it's less easily broken in. That whole field is definitely not going away. And it may, yes, be offshore, but I can see such demand for that. And again, I do not have a crystal ball. Nobody has a crystal ball. So again, please just take me as one opinion. But as I'm looking, especially at young people, I'm thinking about the next 60 years and how the world is going to change over the next 60 years. And I want you to choose a career that isn't going to go away over your lifetime. If I'm asking you to be laser focused, I'm asking you to work so hard and not dabble. I don't want you to do that and then the career goes away. But I'm pretty confident that data security ain't going away, unfortunately. There will be careers in that for the foreseeable future. Okay. Teacher. Barbara, I want you to do this. What are the, no, but be as honest.
This is your last gig in this office.
Upsides and downsides of being a teacher. Don't say overrated or underrated. Just be upsides and downsides of being a teacher. Nobody would know better than her. She was a star teacher, which, like many administrators, normally they weren't teach. She was a star teacher long before she got to be superintendent. So you know from the inside out. Go ahead.
Well, I think teaching is a very evolving career. And I would say if you're going to be a teacher, it's only going to get better because the use of technology is so powerful and the tools that we have available as teachers today are fantastic. When I started teaching, I had 40 kids in a class. They spoke many languages. There was only me. I had no idea how to teach them how to read, and I was armed with a book called Friendly Village. It was the Alice and Jerry series. It was the alternate to Look, Dick, Look, See, Spot, Run. This was, look at our village. Today was Mother's big day. She was going to clean the house. And that's what I was supposed to use to teach 40 kids in the 2nd grade how to read, everybody from the kid who was reading on 4th grade level to the kid who didn't know the alphabet. So it was a very tough job. Today, because we have devices, the devices can diagnose, assess, and prescribe exactly the level that kids need to learn well. So every kid can be reading the same story about the same topic on his or her own reading level. And so I think we can do a much better job, and it's so much more engaging than the way we were taught in school. So I think being a teacher, it's been a tough job, but I think it's getting better in many ways. And again, if you have a specialty, that is really fabulous. Particularly if you love special education, those jobs aren't going away and nobody's doing them anywhere else. Those are going to be available here. And kids keep being born, so I don't think teaching is going away. Marty has this fantasy that someday everybody will just stay home and use devices, but I think there's a custodial function of teaching that can never go away. So we need to take care of kids during the day while parents are working. And I think it's getting very rewarding when you see how far kids can move because of the tools that we have.
We could talk about this all day, but we're not. So I'm gonna move on. And I'm really looking at the time. And the only thing I'm going to skip through all the rest except for one. Government program analyst and evaluator. Very underrated. Sounds boring. Fantastic career. It is my judgment that we've certainly seen government does not shrink. Government continues to grow, even under Trump, and it will grow more. Because I think Trump is an aberration, whether you like him or hate him. I really think that because of demographics and other factors, we are going to see a Democratic big win in 2018 and again in 2020 in the presidency. And government is going to continue to grow. And it is already the last bastion of secure jobs. Unless you're a superstar. If you're a data scientist, brilliant Harvard, data scientist, fine, you can get hired in companies. But recent studies show that actually salaries are higher in the government sector and on average, and certainly job security is non-pareil. So there's a couple of these job titles in government that I want to particularly call to your attention, and that is analyst and evaluator. They are government, especially the federal government, hired, and the federal government is not just in Washington, D.C. We have huge federal government offices, certainly in Oakland and in San Francisco, and they have these jobs called analysts, where you are, for example, looking at Native American AIDS and what's causing it and what programs work and which don't. Analysts are the ones who review it and write reports. And after you've written that report, you may deal with something about small business ownership in rural areas and what programs work to encourage that. It's very interesting and varied. And the evaluator positions are evaluating those programs to see which ones work and don't. Those are really interesting jobs. They're not going to be offshored, stable, requires just a bachelor's degree, maybe a master's, under the radar. I strongly recommend government jobs for the future. I really think that companies and nonprofits are going to use as many people as they can, part-time, temp, no benefit, contract. And that's not fun for most people. I know one of the things Barbara likes is that she's got this staff that has very low turnover, and they all know each other, and they celebrate each other's birthdays and holidays and things, and that's a nice thing. Whereas if you're going every 2 months for a new project, in the end, while some people like that, most people don't. And government is the last bastion, pretty much, of that, unless you're a star.
I have a question.
Please.
You said student affairs professional at college. Great job. But nobody ever grows up thinking that's what I want to be when I grow up. So what do you study to get that job? How do you prepare for that?
Great question. Undergraduate, you can major in almost anything. What you major in, and in most cases, you can major in not just for this, but in most careers, not nursing, but in most careers, you can major if you want. This may sound contradictory, but it's not. You like theater? Major in theater. Because your ability to have poise, read great literature again and again so you really understand it, the teamwork, all that stuff, if you can then, when you're applying for your internship, say, I'm really interested in being a student affairs professional because I found in working as in theater, in all the plays and all the readings, I felt it helps me to understand people far better than if I had majored in business, for example. I believe you can major in what you like and end up being a student affairs person. Also, however, summer internships. The way you differentiate yourself, if I wanted to be in I'd major in what I wanted, that would be fun. And then in my summers, I would be doing internships at colleges in their Office of Student Affairs. And I'd be going to the national conference. There's something called the National Association of Student, NASPA, National Association of Student Personnel Association, something like that. And just Google Student Affairs Association, you'll find it. I'd go to their national conference. There's always like free or very low cost student attendee. I'd go to the workshops, talk to people, make connections. That's how I prepared for that career. And that's true of most careers, something I never knew when I was young. But once I chose my career, while I was still in college, I would go to the conference. There's always a professional association, whether it's geologists or entomologists or haircutters. There are conventions. It's a great place to go to learn practical stuff in workshops and to network and schmooze and socialize. It's really fun. That's how people launch their careers. That's part of being laser focused. Okay, moving on. Now, choosing a career. There is an amazing website. This is produced by the government. It's called mynextmove.org. It allows you to explore lots of careers other than certainly the ones I've talked about today. You can simply look by putting the name of the career in there and it's going to get you all kinds of information. or simply assess what categories. Do you like administrative work in an office? Do you like to be outdoors in the forest? You can, and it'll show you all kinds of stuff. So just go. It's a great website, mynextmove.org. My book, Cool Careers for Dummies, has little 2-paragraph introductions to 500 careers, and I wrote them in an entertaining way so that it's an easy way to get exposed. In an hour and a half, you can get exposed to 500 careers, and then at the end of each one, I have a website, a link to a website that has more information on the career. Easy way to explore lots of options. Next, as I said earlier, once you find a career that's intriguing, either something we talked about today or otherwise, YouTube videos are the most fun, easy way to learn about a career. So just, there's a videos tab on Google. Use the videos tab, or just go to youtube.com and then put the name of the career and the word career. So geologist career, haircutter career, actor career, and you'll see all kinds of videos that are fun. And watch the short ones. Sometimes the ones that are like 2 to 5 minutes are really great. I'm not trying to make this an academically painful exercise. Watch a few 2-minute videos. They're cool. Google articles. Read a few articles on, and again, search on that career, whatever the career is. If it's student affairs careers, you Google that. Put student affairs in quotes. So Google looks at it as a phrase, and then the word careers, and you're going to find articles. Read a couple. Don't go nuts. You don't have to. If you're still fascinated, okay, then go to Amazon. I remember there was, on my radio show, I had a guest, a woman who wrote a book that was 30 different nurses' experiences, their stories about what it's like to be a nurse. That one book is like informational interviewing with 30 nurses for the cost of a book. Used, like $3. Sent to your door. It's awesome. And then, as I said, if it's still interesting, then job shadow somebody that maybe your family, your friends have set you up, or LinkedIn. Maybe your kids may be too young to know about LinkedIn, but LinkedIn is a great way to make connections with people. It's a good way. Great way is too strong. Okay, time for a workover. Yes? It's a great question. Vocational assessments, I'm very skeptical. The famous vocational assessments are the Myers-Briggs, the Strong Interest Inventory, and their validity is very suspect. So I have learned and when I first started out, I gave those tests. Now they sit in my file cabinet. I really think that looking through lists of careers like the ones we're going over today, like at that mynextmove.org, I think it's better to choosing career is more organic. It doesn't reduce to some simple formula like these tests imply. We all get a gut feeling as we look down and let's say, that feels right. It's a more organic process than those tests would have us believe. Those tests, again, are developed by PhDs, and they're a little out of touch with the reality, the subtleties of what it really takes to choose a career well. When I work with my clients, and that's a good example here, I'm going to pick somebody here. You're going to see what the career that I'm going to suggest is going to be very nuanced. It's not going to come out in a test. Who's going to volunteer? Who doesn't know what the hell they want to be when they grow up? I don't care if you're 6 or 76. Your hand was up first, so come on up. Let's hear it for her. Let's give her a round of applause. Hi, what's your name?
Erin.
Say it again?
Erin.
Erin. Hi, Erin. Okay. Tell me a little bit about you, some clues that may help you come up with a career.
I like science and photography and animals.
And animals. Okay. And let's take those one at a time. What particularly do you like about science?
Biology and genetics.
Okay. And photography. Tell me, do you take pictures?
Yeah, I take landscapes.
Pick landscapes? And tell me what you like about animals.
They're just so nice and they, yeah. Oh yeah, he's really cute. And you just want to help them.
Okay, so we're going to play a game. Have you ever been to the eye doctor? No. Okay. When you go to the eye doctor to get fitted for contact lenses or glasses, they ask you, is it better with... What? That was weird. Oh, okay. They ask you whether it's better with lens 1 or lens 2. And then after a while you can't tell and you feel stupid. Exactly. So I'm going to give you 2 careers based on just a little bit you told me, and you tell me which you like better. Okay? Would you rather be a veterinarian or take photographs of animals for pet owners?
A veterinarian.
Would you rather be a veterinarian or would you rather be a doggy breeder?
A veterinarian.
Would you rather be a veterinarian or would you rather be a people doctor? It's a regular, a physician, like the doctor, your pediatrician.
I don't know. Probably people doctor.
People doctor. Would you rather be a physician assistant, like we talked about, or a people doctor, truthfully?
Physician assistant.
Okay. Would you rather be a physician assistant or be a dentist?
Physician assistant.
Okay. Physician assistant or... No, okay, I want to know a little more about you.
Oh.
Tell me some more clues about who you are other than animals, photography, and science.
I like math.
Tell me some more. What else do you like?
I like algebra and computers.
What if people complimented you about not having to do with school?
I volunteer a lot and I help people.
What have you volunteered in?
Oh, at the library, a little bit at the animal shelter, a little bit at the homeless shelter, and a lot at school.
Okay. Physician assistants happen to work a lot with people who today can't afford doctors. So if I said what I need you to do for today is to go and job shadow a physician assistant. To first go home and, like we said, watch a couple of YouTube videos about it. Maybe then go read an article or 2 about it. And then maybe with your mom's help, because it's a lot to ask a kid to do this on her own. It really is. But see, with your mom's help, you might get to visit a physician assistant. How does that feel? Cool? Yeah. Let's hear it for her. Okay. Was there any takeaway from that? Anything that was relevant to you from listening to the way I asked her questions? What was relevant? Anything? Yeah.
Well, I liked how you kept wanting more and more information about her, to understand more about what she enjoys, who she is, her character.
Yeah. Just tell me more about you, tell me more about you, tell me. And then I just try to combine the elements as much as I can. And then I just keep doing little pivots. I have other games you'll see I'll play. I want to do another person. Who wants to? Great, come on up. He who hesitates is lost. And there she was, right now. What's your name?
Sophia.
Sophia, nice to make your acquaintance. I appreciate your being poised enough to come up here. That's awesome. Tell me something about yourself. What do you care? What are you good at? What are you interested in?
I like to do art and theater.
Okay, great. And what do you like best about art and what do you like best about theater?
I like to just try to bring anything I think of to life, and about theater, it can also help me act what I want to bring to life too. So.
Have you had any? What plays have you been in? You've been in an actual play?
Yeah, I've been into a Peter Pan play and a play Cowboys and Cookies.
Okay, great. So is it fun? Like the fact that you jumped up here and you've been in plays, you like an audience? Is that true?
Yeah.
Okay, that's very important because there are some people who are terrified in front of being an audience, and others who like it. So now we're going to play that game, optometry game, the same thing, 2 choices. So let's assume you can be, we said being an actor is tough to make a living. So we want you to be, for your whole life, we want you to do acting. Absolutely. But for your career, we're going to take advantage of your desire to be in front of an audience. So I'm going to give you 2 choices. You tell me which you like better. Would you rather be a teacher or would you rather be a salesperson who's selling your stuff talking to a whole group to present what the product is like?
Teacher.
Would you rather be a teacher or would you rather be a, let's see, in front of a group, perform, or a lawyer who's saying your case in front of a jury?
Teacher.
Okay, now we're going to create a Sophia meter. And the Sophia meter goes from 0 to 10, with 0 means the idea of being a teacher makes you puke, and 10 means it gives you ecstasy. Okay? What does being a teacher score on the Sophia meter?
8.
8. What keeps it from being a 10?
Sometimes it's the kids throwing stuff and yelling because that's what I experienced before in class.
Absolutely. So what if we said that the key was you're going to be a drama teacher, but what you're going to do is you're going to, as you're a student, as you're growing up, you watch the good teachers. There are some teachers who know how to control a class really well, and others who are terrible at it. And you keep watching, not just as a student, but watching to see what did the good teachers do. And they don't let go of your dream. And you're going to be a drama teacher right here at Napa High or Vintage High or Justin Siena. How does that feel?
It would feel pretty great.
What keeps it from being really great?
Still the fact of everybody yelling and screaming at me too.
But if you're a good teacher, they won't. If you show that you're firm but kind, prepared and caring a lot, that you demand excellent behavior, but it's not because you're mean, it's because you care so much that they learn, you're not going to be one of those teachers that they yell at. Do you believe me?
Yes.
Okay. Let's hear it for her. Okay, moving on. Whether you're in high school looking for a job or an internship or later on in life, although it's been proven to be the least valid way of choosing somebody, employers use interviews all the time. And so what we're going to do is, Barbara and I are going to demonstrate the most common, she's going to ask me a couple of common questions that are asked in interviews, and I'm going to start by being a terrible interviewee, and then hopefully I will become a good interviewee the second time. Okay, Barbara, come on up. Let's hold it up because you just, okay, yeah.
Well, how do you do?
Hi.
Tell me something about yourself.
Well, I was born in New York City, and I grew up at 1135 Evergreen Avenue, and then I moved to Queens to live in the bottom of a duplex, and then I went to PS 173, and then I went to Junior High School 216, and I'll keep going like that.
That's fascinating.
Okay, ask me again the second question.
Why are you interested in this
No,
job?
that's the first question. Same
That's the
thing.
first question
No, I'm going to do
again.
it. Oh, what's the job for? So we should know what is this job?
Oh, good question.
Be whatever you make up. No, nuclear engineer. Okay.
Tell me everything you know about nuclear engineering.
Tell me something about yourself.
Tell me something about yourself.
I remember when I was first growing up, I was amazed at how much devastation nuclear energy can do. I remember Hiroshima and the devastating power of it. But then I heard that nuclear energy could also be used to provide clean, safe energy. I was devastated when Chernobyl happened. And when that happened and I saw the death and destruction that occurred because of that, I said to myself, I am going to become a nuclear engineer, and I am going to develop and operate safe nuclear. That's a little introduction to me. Okay, so, all right. So what was better about my second answer? What made that a better answer?
Well, it was very focused and targeted to this position that you're interviewing for.
I also told a story. I was human and I was emotional. People don't realize that telling your true human story is critical to making the human connection needed to get the job. Even if I gave an intermediate answer and I said, well, I have a bachelor's degree in nuclear engineering from UC Davis, and I did an interview at the Pacific Union College energy plant, and I really been reading up on nuclear. It's not the same. There's no chemistry. There's no connection. Emotion, emotion, emotion. It's ironic that people who have a lot of emotion in real life, they check their emotions at the door when they come in for the interview, and they turn into a robot. No robots. Okay, ask me another common question that is asked.
What experience do you have for this job?
Now, I'm going to give a good answer because for interest of time. I could, like on some job seekers, be dishonest. I have no experience. I just graduated college, And I tried to get an internship and I couldn't get one. But what I've been doing, frankly, in preparing for this interview, I have read the last 7 issues of the Journal of Nuclear Engineering, and including its recent report on small-scale nuclear that is being developed in China, and the really new method of containment that is being used to avoid Fukushima-type disasters. And I had a couple of informational interviews with people who were working at Diablo Valley nuclear plant, the Diablo Canyon nuclear plant. And because I'm so inexperienced, I'm humbled to even apply for the job. I'm absolutely willing to work my way up from the bottom. You will find nobody who's going to be a harder worker.
Who's going to hire him?
I will.
You do?
Okay. All right. So the other question is,
Tell me about your strengths and what are your weaknesses?
well, I guess my best strength is, and I'm sure many people say this, but I love to work. I live to work. I work everything I've done. I've always worked 70 hours a week. And if I got a job like this, I'd probably work 80 because I'm really excited because this job is asking me to work underneath somebody who's one of your designers of safe nuclear, which, as I said earlier, is like my mission in life. My greatest weakness, I got to tell you, I'm not a team player. I get very impatient with people. And so if you're really asking me to be, if this job is going to require lots of teamwork, lots of meetings, you probably need to hire somebody else. But if you give me a project to do by myself, it will get done. What did I do there in acknowledging in saying my weakness? I acknowledge the truth. Most people who are job interviewees come off as BS artists. Employers and employees don't trust each other at all in that interview. So instead of saying, well, my greatest weakness is I tend to take my work a little too seriously, BS. Even if it's true, it sounds like BS. But if I state a legitimate weakness, I'm going to be rejected for the wrong job. If the job does require a lot of teamwork and sitting in meetings, I'll get rejected. I should be. A more appropriate candidate's going to get that job, and I'll find one where I'm more likely to succeed. And my integrity stays intact. And if it happens to be a job that doesn't require a lot of teamwork, and by the way, if I'm looking at ads, I'd look for a job that didn't require a lot of teamwork. They'll be more likely, they'll trust everything else I'm going to say because I've not been a BSer. And I know this sounds corny, but in the end, I have, until recently, my mouse pad. I had it, you can get custom mouse pads. On my custom mouse pad, I had the phrase, integrity is key. You can BS your way to success. Absolutely. Absolutely. But when you put your head on the pillow and when you talk to your daughter or your son, you want to feel like there's a Jewish term called mensch, a person of character. The older I get, and I'm past 60 now, the older I get, the more I'm convinced that in the end is really damn critical. You'll make enough money. You won't make the most. Really, the ones who make the most money are kind of sleazy at times. But you can make enough money. If you don't be so shallow as to need a Jaguar, or a fancy house in a fancy neighborhood, or fancy jewelry, or staying in 4-star hotels, which is all shallow crap. If you realize that the meaning of life resides in doing good work, being an expert at something, and being ethical, and relationships, and creative outlets like theater, then you can be completely ethical and be fine. And so in my job interviews, when I coach my clients, or if I were looking for a job, I'd be completely, I wouldn't say, reveal I have to bear every little weakness, but I will give certainly a legitimate, honest, relevant weakness to that job. Okay? Much more we could talk about, we just don't have enough time. So I want to talk about just a little bit about self-employment, and then take a couple questions, and then a story I want to end with. Okay. Obviously, I've said many times that status is the enemy to contentment. So it may not surprise you that one of the careers I think is smartest is to run a small chain of flower carts. What? Flower carts? What is this, My Fair Lady? Why might I say that owning a small chain of flower carts is a very smart thing to do for a career. Yeah. You don't have much competition. That is one factor. But in really good locations, and that kind of business requires a great location, you want to be next to the BART station. You want to be next to some really high traffic, right next to a movie theater, right? You want to be on the roadside, on 29, right in a vacant lot, in a flat where they can see you, so there's no rent. And the guys coming home from work and their girlfriend or wives are mad at them. They can stop and pick up flowers to bring home, all that. Location, there may be competition, but you have to fight for great location. But why is that a great career? Why is that a great career? Yeah.
Because there's never much stress, and you can always make decent living, no debt, and
Right, low stress and no debt because it costs almost nothing to start. There are some people who've made amazing amounts of money selling flowers out of 5-gallon bucket soy sauce containers, filling them with water, and then finding a shady spot to arrange them and wrapping them in colored cellophane and putting a little baby's breath in. It's a great business for many, 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 many reasons. One, again, completely ethical, nothing bad about it. Two, as you said, low stress. Three, low investment, because you're going to make mistakes when you start out. And you're not bleeding money. You get to learn quickly how much inventory you need. And you don't carry everything. You carry roses and carnations. That's what most people buy. Roses and carnations. Baby's breath. That's it. And can't be offshored. Can't go out of style. It's not like high tech. You come up with this really cool invention. It's like this really great app, man. And then somebody else comes up with a better app. Or a big company squashes you, even if their app is worse. With flowers, you are under the radar. You're also competing with not the sharpest tools in the shed, not the sharpest crayons in the box. Because people pursue status. Oh, I wouldn't be a flower sender. But you say, I can't make enough money with a flower cart. You're right. But you can make enough money with 3 or 4 flower carts. So you start with one and you run it yourself, and you insist on a great location. Right on 29 is a perfect Napa example. A little vacant lot, and there's people with huge traffic. Or where there's a lot of foot traffic outside of maybe restaurants. Down Restaurant Row on Friday and Saturday night. Maybe during commute time you're there on 29, and maybe on the Friday and Saturday nights you're downtown. Now, of course, the government has its rules. You need a permit, so I don't mean to say anything illegal. So you need to contact your city and county of Napa to get permits. I'm sure there's permits required. But even with that, and there are rules where you can and can't have it, I'm not saying, I don't know the Napa rules, but you will follow the law. You run the first one yourself so you can feel what works. What is the smartest way to display them? What is the best way to deal with customers? What are the objections they have? What is really selling? What is not? How should you put your pricing? Should you have your pricing listed or not? Everything you learn by yourself. But then once you've got it down, you probably only make $25,000 a year from that cart. That's not enough to live. But now you have a clonable formula. And you find a friend who's not going to steal from you, because it's a cash business. And in the real world, a lot of stealing goes on. And no matter how much inventory control you do, there's somehow some money missing. So you find somebody you trust. Your Aunt Sally, whatever. And you pay her well, and you treat her well. That sounds like a dog doing bad things.
She's got a very inexpensive plaything, an empty cup, and it's just having a wonderful
Right. So once you've got 2 or 3 or 4, once you have like 4, you're making 100,000 a year, something like that, net, with very little work. You treat your workers well, you give them some profit sharing, and now you're making a six-figure income no matter how much school you have. You're the boss. Nobody can fire you, offshore you. I know a guy who started Frank's for the Memories, hot dog carts. He retired at 40, a zillionaire. He had about 6 hot dog carts. Downtown San Francisco, financial district, Golden Gate Park, whatever. Because he realized that status is the enemy of contentment. Such a relatively low-risk business. As I said, no trend risk, low investment, completely ethical. As long as every business has to be executed well, but there is an example of under the radar in simple unemployment. I've got time for 2 questions. I want you to raise your hand if you have a question that you think might be of interest, not just to you, but to many people. What's the question you have? Anybody? Okay, she wants to know about influencing letter. Again, standard practice for job seekers to write a thank you letter. Thank you very much for the opportunity to interview for the job. Hoping to hear from you sincerely, Mary Jones. That will not distinguish you from the competition. Half the applicants do that, and you seem like a drone. You seem like you're just a boring, like a loser, to be really honest. Because there's nothing creative, nothing smart about it. You're just doing your little obligation. You don't like that term, loser. I see you're making faces. But I didn't say you were, it makes you seem like, notice the word, I was very careful in the words I used. It makes you seem like a loser if you're just being robotic in writing a note that is, so standard, right? An influencing letter takes an opportunity to write something that really is going to make an impression. And now I'm going to demonstrate a much better letter with an influencing letter. Dear John, I was really excited. I was really interested in this job before I interviewed, but more so now because you told me that that I would have an opportunity to learn how to analyze big data or whatever it would be. Also, I had I was really glad that you appreciated that I had done an internship at the doctor's company here in Napa. I also had a chance to reflect a bit on that question you asked me about the question he flubbed, that question about and have further thoughts, and you explain it. As you can tell, I'm more excited than ever about the prospect of this job, and I'm hoping to hear from you sincerely. That influences people much more because you have reminded them of the best thing you did in the interview. You've taken a second shot at a question that you screwed up, and you have made the case for why you're more excited than ever. Can you see how that's going to make you much more seem like a winner than the standard thank you note? So that's the influencing letter. Okay, I'm going to end everything that I've done for you tonight. And frankly, as I say, every speech I've ever done is original. I never do the same speech twice, except for what I'm going to do now. I've ended every speech with this story, not because I promised my father that I would, even though I did, because the lesson in this story may be of greater value than anything I've said so far. The year was 1939. The town was Sierpes, Poland. My father was living with his parents in a bucolic small town. They never locked the doors or anything. And one day, there was a knock on the door. And it was 2 Nazis in black boots. And unlike in the movies, they didn't yell. One was silent. And the other whispered. You will be out of your house with only what you can carry on your back by noon tomorrow, or else. But noon tomorrow, there weren't 2 Nazis. There were 12. And 2 trucks. And my father's parents were put in one truck, and he was put in the other. He never saw his parents again. I'm not going to go and tell you another Holocaust story. You've heard it a million times. You've seen it in the movies. But I will tell you that he and 11 men escaped under a barbed wire fence. And he lived in the Black Forest for a year thanks to the goodwill of the Christians who took care of him. At the end of the war, he was dumped on a cargo boat and dropped in the Bronx without a penny to his name, no money, no English, no education, no family, no nothing except for the scholars of the Holocaust tortures. What did he do? No job was beneath him. The only job he could get was sewing shirts in a factory in Harlem. Minimum wage. And what did he do at night? Did he say, I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I'm a Holocaust survivor, I'm going to go and get drunk? No. He went to Roosevelt High School, night school in the Bronx to learn English. Because he knew that unless he learned good English, he would always be sewing shirts making minimum wage in Harlem. What did he do on Saturdays? He said, I'm exhausted, I'm a Holocaust survivor, I worked all day, minimum wage, went to school at night, I'm going to go and watch Saturday morning football? He went to the owner of the factory and he said, could I take those shirts that I sewed for you during the week and sell them out of a cardboard box on the streets? And he bought them for $1 and he sold them for $1.50. This was 1950 or 48 or something like that, 38. And what did he do with the money? He said, oh, I worked so hard, I'm a Holocaust survivor, I deserve to reward myself, I'm going to buy myself some nice stuff. No. Because he and my mom, by the way, whom we met in that night school learning English, she was also a Holocaust survivor, Auschwitz no less. We were living in a true tenement in the Bronx with the 24/7 crane roaring all night, all day. None of us could sleep. He didn't want us living there. So he saved up the money that he sold from selling those shirts on the Saturdays until he could afford the first and last month's rent on the only storefront he could afford, 105 Moore Street in Brooklyn. And you can look at Google Maps now, Google Earth. It is still one of the most dangerous, horrible neighborhoods you will ever see. But that's what he could afford. And that store was so small that he had to store most of the merchandise out on the street in folding tables. And like I said, it was one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in New York, still is. But he couldn't afford a security guard. So as soon as I got to be 13, guess who was the security guard? If you think I look nerdy now, you should have seen me then. And the most vivid memory of my life was one day when business was slow. And there was a parking meter in front of the store. And I remember my elbow resting on one side of the meter, and my dad's was his elbow on the other. And suddenly, something popped into my head. I said, Daddy, how come you so rarely talk about the Holocaust? And he stiffened, which is something he rarely did. And he said, Martin, the Nazis took 5 years from my life. I won't give them 1 minute more. He said, Martin, never look back. Always take the next step forward. And each and every one of us, whether we're a kid or we're older, has had crap happen to us. But I have had the privilege of having been a career coach to some of the most successful people on planet Earth, as well as some real strugglers. And I have found that one of the differentiating features is that the more successful ones are much more likely to never look back, always take the next step forward. I can leave you with no better advice. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much.